Hi guys, today I'm doing a Biscoff cake. I'm using Biscoff spread and Biscoff biscuits. I've never tasted it before, so this is my first try. And contrary to what my face says, it's actually really nice. Reminds me of a, I don't know, caramelized digestive biscuit. Okay, so I am unwrapping the cakes. I've wrapped them because I'm not decorating them the same day that I bake them. You don't want them to dry out. Then cut the tops off so that when you stack the cakes, it is flat and makes it much easier to kind of get a sharp edge on the top. Okay, so this is a non-slip mat from my mother. I'm pretty sure she got it from one of those random aisles, you know, in like Lidl or Aldi. And it's like an aisle full of everything you've never needed, but now you want everything. But it's super helpful and stops the board from slipping around when you're decorating it. Then also add some buttercream to the board to stop the cake slipping around. So now the board's not going to move, the cake's not going to move, and when you decorate, it's much easier and you don't have to worry about it sliding off the board. So now I'm just adding the Biscoff spread to my vanilla bean Swiss meringue buttercream. The consistency once the paste is added is very similar to what happens with peanut butter, and it kind of goes soupy, and it's not as stable. So if I did this again, what I would do is pipe a border of vanilla buttercream around the outside and then fill it with the softer spread. But I feel like everyone's used to seeing so many videos all over the world of cakes just going right, so I'm actually just going to continue and maybe try and show you what happens when things don't go right and how to save that. So I'm just going to continue with this cake. As you can see, it's kind of sliding around and I'm having to keep forcing it back into position, which is what I expected. What I've done is grabbed a straw. You can grab a straw, you can grab a dowel, and what that does is that helps keep all 4 layers in place as you crumb coat. You might have to keep moving the straw because it will slide, but at least then you can pull the straw back up. So I've refrigerated it and I'm cutting the straw off at the top. You could just remove it if you wanted to. So as you can see, the buttercream came off on my finger, which lets me know that it's really not going to set. So this is a nifty trick if you're not used to filling a piping bag. If you put the piping bag in a cup, fill the cup, then it kind of prevents any mishaps and you won't end up with buttercream on the floor. And you can kind of see that this is falling off the spoon and you can see kind of how soft it is, hopefully. Okay, so what you want to do now is just snip the top off. When you're snipping the top off a piping bag, do not do it anywhere near the cake or over the buttercream, because if that falls off, it's clear, and yeah, good luck finding it. So yeah, you just want to cover it. I'm going in with the offset spatula. Usually I just kind of slap it on, but because this is like super unstable, I am just being a little bit more gentle than I usually would. And then just go back in and fill in any gaps that you have with the remaining buttercream that is in your piping bag. And then you just want to repeat this process over and over and over again. And don't stress about how long it's taking you. I actually find that the smaller cakes take me much longer than the bigger cakes would. I don't know why that is. I think it's just because they're a little bit more fragile. Okay, so I've refrigerated the cake and now I'm just scraping the edges off because I'm going to go in with my vanilla buttercream and I don't want those colours to mix. I'm going to use the same method of filling the piping bag, and as you can hopefully see, this vanilla is a lot more sturdy and I'm having to kind of push it in, whereas with the Biscoff buttercream it's a lot softer and it kind of just flopped in by itself. Add some to the top. You want to be careful not to overfill your bag also, because if you overfill your bag, you're not going to be able to grab it at the top. And then it will just be a lot more difficult for you to do. Okay, so I'm basically doing exactly the same thing that I've just done with the Biscoff spread. I'm just doing it with a much thinner layer of vanilla buttercream. And what that's going to do is, because the Biscoff layer is quite soft, the vanilla layer will kind of hold it in place. So you're just going to do exactly the same thing, do a line at a time and just go around the cake. This is a lot thinner because you don't, it's only a 4-inch cake, so you don't want ridiculous amounts of buttercream on that. And there we go. And then you're just going to do exactly the same thing that you did before. Take your time, and then you just keep filling holes, scraping the side down, filling holes, scraping the side down. And you're going to do this over and over again for what may feel like eternity, but it's worth it. And then I'm here just filling in holes and air bubbles. You get less air bubbles if you mix your buttercream properly before you put it in the piping bag. Okay, so yeah, I'm just literally doing the same thing over and over again, filling, scraping, piping, filling, scraping, piping, and then until you're happy with it. Okay, so that's in the fridge. I'm doing the ganache. I do not know why I'm dropping this in the bowl like it's some kind of M&S advert, but there we have it. Okay, so I don't actually measure my ganache. I don't know why. It just seems, I don't know, I just don't. But what I do is if I put the chocolate in the bowl, I just make sure that it's covered. Maybe not covered, maybe coated. I make sure that the chocolate is coated, so it's not drowning in it. There's not a lot of exposed white chocolate, it's just coated. I pop that in the microwave for about 30 seconds and you can see it quite runny. This will thicken up as it cools, so I'm just gonna pop that to the side and let it cool whilst I crush biscuits. Okay, so the easy way of crushing biscuits is to put biscuits in a little sandwich bag, a Ziploc bag, whatever you have. I use this rolling pin, it's my favourite rolling pin. You can use anything though, like maybe glass, ketchup, anything, literally anything. And just crush it and crush it and crush it and crush it until you're happy with the crumb. Okay, so here you can see that you kind of got some different sized crumbs, but what I'm going to do is just use the finer ones and pick out the bigger ones. I guess you could also use a blender. So here is where I forgot to press record. I'm just going to go back in and show you what I did. So I basically just grabbed a tablespoon at a time and went around the cake. I tried not to be perfect about it because I did not want a perfectly solid line. I kind of wanted it to be a little bit rustic. You could pick up a handful of crumbs at a time and like press it on the cake. I just chose not to do that. And then when you're happy, kind of just push the crumb into the buttercream. They are crumbs, so they will fall off if you don't do this. Okay, so now I've left that sat just out at room temperature. You can see that it's got thicker. If you want to test the consistency of your ganache, you can drip it on the side of the bowl. This is really awkward to do with one hand. And then if it drips too fast, then you know that it needs to cool a little bit more. However, when you add things like peanut butter and Biscoff, the consistency will change anyway. So I've just added that there, and what happens is it kind of goes a bit gloopy. So I'm just here adding in a little bit more double cream just to make it the consistency that I want it to be for dripping down the side of the cake. And now I'm happy with it. Okay, so back with my mat, and I use like a kind of ketchup squeezy bottle. You can get these from IKEA, Wilko's, everywhere. You can also use a piping bag, and you can also use a spoon. I don't like doing it like that because I think it just looks different, and you don't have as much control, whereas with this you have a lot of control. Okay, so once you've done the drip, leave it in the fridge for a little while because you want the drip to set a little bit before you kind of continue to decorate cake. So I'm piping on top of this cake, but I wanted it to be two-toned, so I'm going kind of lining up some vanilla buttercream. Right alongside it, I am adding the Biscoff buttercream. Hopefully you can see the colours are slightly different. It is, you know, mild, but they are definitely different. So you're going to pop it on some cling film, line them up side by side, and then roll it up into kind of like a sausage. You want to bang it and roll it against the surface just to get the air out. I'm using a French tip, but I'm going to use the largest one because that's my favourite. So now you can snip the top of the piping bag off, pop your nozzle in, and then snip one end of your buttercream sausage off, put the snipped end into the piping bag. Mine's a little bit full, but it's okay. Right, so in the middle, I didn't want to leave it blank, so I'm just going in with the leftover crumbs from the outside of the bottom of the cake, and I'm just going to fill it at the top. If you're not confident with, I don't know, your steady hand, put one hand on one side so it doesn't drip, I don't know if I'm making any sense. Okay, so here is the piping bag. You can do 1,000,001 different designs, but this is kind of the design that I tend to go for just because I like it. It's quite delicate, and you can kind of see both colours quite nicely. There you go. And then I'm just gonna grab a biscuit and apparently place it at the speed of an elderly snail. But yeah, you want to pop the biscuit where you stopped piping buttercream, and there you have it.